All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee and Questions. Let's do part two. I hope you watched part one. You saw me prep the wood, hollow it out, and we're all the way up to the point where we're sanding. So let's go ahead, let's get out to the shop, let's get right to the point, I guess, and let's get right after it. And let me show you what you can do, in terms of sanding and finishing. Now, this picture is not mine, it's off of the web, but it shows you, like I said in the last video, these are possibilities that you have. And like this is a really pretty figured, kind of a burlish kind of a wood. It's a nice project. It wasn't mine, but I put it up here to give you an idea of things that you can accomplish off of that wood lathe. All right, let's get after it. I'll see you in the garage. Okay, so what I wanted to explain is I use a power drill, and this is a 2-inch pad, and I don't care if it's 60 grit or 80 grit that you have on here. I'm starting off with 80 because the wood was very porous. It had some punky areas, and there's a lot of criticism over, well, you could have used sharper tools. Well, it's not just sharper tools, it's your technique, it's the type of wood, there's a lot of variables there, but the sanding always seems to be kind of like your default for fixing things. So with the 80 grit, I can create some nice final shaping, get out my tool marks. Okay, other times I start at 120, maybe 150 once in a while, I don't know, it just depends on the wood and the project. Sanding paper's a tool, that's that. So in this case, I went over with 80 grit. I still got that crack here, but I filled that with that CA glue. So now that I'm sanding, I'm gonna get rid of all that CA glue that came over onto the other part of the wood. Okay, so right now where we're at, I've used that drill and we've power sanded it, and I'm all the way up to 150. Okay, so now you can go 150, 220, 320. I never try to make more than a 50 grit jump when I'm in the lower grits, but when you get up to 150, I go 150, 220, 320, 400, up to 500, 600, 800, 1,000. That's the way I do it. It works for me. And then whether I wet sand, dry sand, or whatever my choice is. But right now, anyway, we are up to 150. I am going to go to 220 and hand sand. I'll show you that here in just a moment. So I have discs, but I also came across deals on sandpaper from Klingsport. And I've just got some flat ones too, so like right here. So let's just go ahead and sand with 220. Now the other thing I'll tell you, as you go through the grits, you're going to spend less time sanding on your project. It'll go faster. But especially when I get up to 220 now, what I'll do is when I start to switch over on the grit, I'll sand with the grain very briefly. From about 220 up now, 320, 400. If you're going to put a film finish on something, you really don't have to go past 150 because the film finish is going to create that layer. But there are a lot of times, yeah, I do. I'll go to 220 or maybe even 320. But, if I go higher than that, I'm probably going to be doing some kind of an oil finish on it, in which case I'll start really going through a lot of the higher grits. That's my preference. This is like the first video, really. We're going to be concentrating more on finishing than anything here. So, what's the difference between a mediocre finish and an outstanding finish? Well, the answer is a little more time. So if you put more time into the sanding and the preparation, your finish is going to come out much better. That's the difference between, let's say a crummy finish and a great finish. You already got time invested in creating the shape. All right, so I'm going to do this for a little bit. I'm going to use those reading glasses like I told you. I'm going to look at the mark, and now when I go from grit to grit, the grain's going this way. I just sit and go like this with each grit when I'm done before I jump to the next one. Now, of course, it depends on how high I'm going. If I'm wet sanding, I might not do this till I really get up into the 400 or 500 range, but it's up to you. You can experiment around. Don't use worn out sandpaper, okay? Worn out, It's like what somebody said in one of the videos a long time back. Worn out 150 is not 220 grit sandpaper. I mean, if it's worn out, it's a tool, it's a dull, it's no good anymore. You know, get rid of it. And get yourself some fresh sandpaper on there with a fresh grit. You know, don't be so cheap, right? Okay, so what I use is General Finishes Armor Seal. It's just what I have a can of. I'm just using it as a sealer right now to fill in all these pores. We're still going to sand this, but right now, that's what I'm going to put on here. We're going to let that dry. It's got a pretty nice sheen to it itself. Then we'll look for more imperfections, sanding marks and stuff like that. But this, when the grain has got a lot of pores, this starts to level and fill those pores as we sand. So that's what we'll do right now, especially on mesquite. Okay, so about an hour and a half has gone by and now this is just incredibly dry. So I'm going to use 4/0 steel wool and I'm going to go over this and get rid of all of the rough areas. And then I'm going to put one more coat on it. So you don't have to have the lathe going fast. 4/0 steel wool. So you can see the project actually moves along kind of fast here. Somebody says, well, you could use sandpaper. That's true, you could use sandpaper. I've done that too. The thing about the steel wool is when you're done, you want to make sure that you actually clean this real well before you put another coat of anything on here. And you can get rid of all those little fibers, you know, from the steel wool. Somebody said, well, can you go faster? Well, yeah, look. Okay, that's nice and smooth, but I am going to go ahead and I'm going to use my blowgun, blow it off. I'll be right back. Okay, again, I'm still using General Finishes Seal-A-Cell. You could use a lot of other stuff. I'm just using that on this project. Now this time, I'm going to go with the grain. It's just a thin coat, you know, you're not glopping it on there, right? So I'm going to let this dry. I'll see you in about an hour and a half. We'll go from there. Okay, so where we left off is I've now got 2 coats on here of that sealer from General Finishes. Like I said, you don't have to use that. You can use whatever else you want to create a sealer, but because the wood is fairly porous, this mesquite, to kind of bring that surface level, I'll probably put 2, maybe even 3 coats of sealer on there, and then we're going to sand it back, and then I'll start worrying about the top finish. Now, top finish, we can use a lot of different products. But we've gotten it to this point. We took a piece of firewood, basically. We turned it into this little vessel. I have enough left over to create a top for it. We sanded it, like I told you, all through those grits. And then we turned around and we put 2 coats of sealer on here. Now, right now I can feel it's dry, but I don't think it's quite dry enough yet. It's been about an hour, hour and a half. I'll give it another hour, hour and a half, maybe, you know, even till morning, and make sure that it is solidly dry. I'll use the 4.5/0 steel wool. I'll go over it again. I'll put the 3rd coat on. Now, the items that I described that I use, I'll put in the links, you know, below, and you can go check them out. I'm not going to tell you when it comes to the finishes which one is best, because it all depends on application, how you prepared the wood, things like that. And there are tons of different ways to finish wood projects. We'll go through them. I'll do more videos on finishing techniques, and you can figure out what your liking is. Some people want that high gloss. To me, a lot of times it looks like it was dipped in plastic. I kind of agree with that comment. I like kind of a semi-gloss. Sometimes, depending on the project, it could be a satin. You know, we'll do it a variety of different ways. I'll shorten up the wood turning part of the video And the sanding, assuming, you know, if you're into this or to any degree, even on any wood projects, you know, you've completed the project, you got it to the sanding stage. There are a ton of YouTube videos out there on watching people turn wood in the different tools. So you got it to this phase, now let's just concentrate on finishing. Now that's what I'd like to do for the next handful of videos. So I think that this is a fun kind of hobby side gig. I did get one comment off of the forum I'll respond to. Smith says, well, I don't see why you bother with it. You know, you're chasing dollars. You're never going to make, you know, X amount of dollars an hour. I don't know, it's $50 an hour or whatever. And well, yeah, you're right. I don't do it for that reason. I like coming out here and firing up the lathe, and I don't really have a plan sometimes. I just start turning the wood and I kind of just figure what I want to do as I'm going through it, and I'm having fun doing it. You know, finishing materials aren't that much. Something like this, when I'm done, you know, without the top, I mean, you know, you sell it, let's say, you know, you make a little bit and you say, well, it wasn't even worth the time doing. But you're not running a business, and if it helps sell, you know, you selling these to fuel your hobby so that you can buy more dies, more finishes, maybe more turning tools, it's just a fun thing to do, and you make a little bit of money that way, okay? So video isn't geared towards trying to make a living off of this at all, so I'm not going to tell you that you can. I have a full-time job, like I said in the beginning of the video. This is just a fun hobby project, and I easily sell the smaller stuff, very easily. People think they're pretty, especially with the tops. They want one. I make the openings big enough. I mean, some people use them to put their change in. Some people put other stuff in them, but they like the idea or the utility of it, that they can actually use it for something if they want the hole. So I make the hole decent sized, okay? And we can discuss, if you want to drop comments below and ask me questions. Why do you do it this way? Why do you do that? Why didn't you do this? I'll respond to them, or I'll put it into the next content in the next video. Another comment, where do you get your sandpaper? I get it locally from wherever, but if I can, I get it from Klingspor. I either get it off Amazon or from Klingspor, to answer your question directly. The little sanding discs and stuff, it depends on who's got the best sale on them with the Velcro backing, the hook and loop. The flat sheets, usually, I think almost strictly off of Klingspor, to give you an answer. The hook and loop discs, you know, I'll leave you the links below. I'm not saying there's not a bunch of good ones out there. There probably is. I stick with what I know is a good product, so I don't got to worry about return shipping and stuff like that. So I'll put that in the comment below. Now, let me see if there's anything else on the computer in the forum. Do I only use the Harbor Freight tools? No. The Thompson bowl gouge, the 1/2 inch right here, it's pretty dirty right now. This is a Thompson. It's not cheap. This is a bowl gouge, and it's made really well. The handle itself is different. I'm not exactly sure where I got the handle, but it has 2 ends that you can put different tools on. I just have the 1/2 inch in it right now. But to answer your question, no. It's not just about the Harbor Freight ones. I'm just telling you, you can actually get away, call it a starter set, and you'll do perfectly fine with it. They give you a good assortment, but buy the higher end one set from Harbor Freight. The metal is still kind of a cheap metal, and you're still going to have to sharpen frequently, but like I said, you'll get good at sharpening. Then you can pop up, and I have, you know, the big bowl scraper back here, right here. Okay, I made the handle for this, you know, nice big round, so it fits my hand comfortably the way I wanted it to, and I made it longer. And, you know, making tool handles is another fun thing to do on a wood lathe, whether it's the benchtop or a larger one. But right here, Sheffield, England, this was an expensive one. It will hold an edge for an incredibly long period of time. Now, carbide tip one. I bought the steel and I bought the carbide tip online, and I made the handle. So there are a lot of times, and it's not cheap, it's about $80, $90 for the tool itself. Now, there's plenty of videos where people have actually made the steel tool and showed you how they ground it, drilled it, tapped it, and then what cutters, I was trying to say, that they're buying for it. I mean, you can go that route. At the time, I thought, screw it. I got it, I paid the $80, I made the handle, and it came with, you know, the cutting tips.
and it works fantastic. I mean, you probably save, you know, half of that, maybe 3/4 if you want to try to make one at home yourself. I didn't want to hassle with it at the time. So I have a variety of tools and different quality tools. Now, one of the things I like about the Harbor Freight one, I'll tell you, is that spindle gouge, if I have something on here that's real dirty or it's filled with a bunch of little pebbly rock and debris and crap, I don't really want to use one of my good tools at first for it. So I'll use the Harbor Freight one, and I'll get it down to like a cylindrical shape, you know, and I use the tool for that, and then I don't care, because it's like I'll go to the grinder, I'll put a new edge on it, it takes me just a minute or so to do, and when I've got it down to that bare wood, you shoot it with your air gun, then I'll switch over and start using, you know, maybe those carbide tools or something like that, because they won't dull as fast. They're not trying to, you know, carve all that, you know, the little pebble rocky rocks, debris, whatever, off of there and dull your blade quick. It's just, look, it's not a big deal. The blades aren't that expensive, the little carbide cutters. It's just what I do, and I guess it's like a protocol that I have in the back of my head. So I'll use the Harbor Freight ones, to abuse. And I've had these for a couple of years or more now, and I'm still using them. So in one way, they're a good value, and when somebody says don't buy them, they're junk, they're cheap steel, well, I would buy them. I can always make the handles stronger. If the tool starts to wiggle in the handle, put some epoxy in there. Problem solved. You're back in business. And you just have to sharpen them frequently. And I usually, no matter what tool I'm going to use, when I come to the lathe, like let's say tomorrow or whenever, I will sharpen those tools right before I start the project. I always do, and then I'll sharpen them along the way, or I don't, depending on how much I'm using them. So I hope that answered your question on, you know, the cheap tool end. I still think they're worth it. Well, as you make these vessels and you sell them for money, let's say I sold 2 of these the other weekend without a top on them, just like this, basically, with no, you know, no lidded top or whatever. They're a little bit bigger than this. I think I sold the 2 of them for $60. Okay. Firewood, didn't cost me anything. Finishing materials, I don't know, what, a few dollars? I mean, it depends on what you put on them. I think all I did was seal them and put a lacquer finish on them. Okay, so there's a few dollars there. And I said, yeah, but you're not making $50 an hour. No, I'm just out here having fun when the project's completed. And they gave me the money for it. Well, then I can turn around and I upgrade like one of the other tools. I have Harbor Freight's parting tool, but this one right here is a higher end diamond. They call it a diamond parting tool, and this comes from, you know, a higher grade manufacturer. And the steel is much stronger, much better quality, high-speed steel. And so I upgrade my tool, or tools, or whatever you want to do. Or I buy something else that sounds like fun that I can use out here in my hobby, and I'm just having a good time, okay? So, all right, so look, I'm the home handyman. I hope you click subscribe. I hope you keep following me. And right now we'll concentrate on the lathe, and mainly we'll concentrate on the finishing techniques that you can do. And then, like I said, make yourself a few bucks. All right, I hope you click subscribe. Like I said, I hope you keep following me. Check the links below. When you use the links, yes, I make a few dollars. I don't make much, but what do I use the money for? 100% of it goes to the stray cats that other people have abandoned, that they live around here. I leave my garage cracked at night. They come in. I use the money for food and whatever else they need. So it's kind of like my charity for the homeless cats, you know. And they're pretty cool. They don't bother me or nothing. I mean, you know, they feed them. They don't mind me out here in the shop. They won't let me get close to them because they're feral, but they're all right. You know, they're like my shop buddies. So, all right, folks, I'll see you on the next video. I hope you got something out of this, and I hope you consider it maybe as like just kind of a fun hobby or something now that we're all in this pandemic isolation thing still. It's fast, it's easy to do. You take a piece of junk wood, you quickly see what's under there and make it into a bowl, a vessel, a weed pot. We'll do different projects. You folks have a great day. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.